Start recording, and we will start with our first presentation, Literacy Footprints, with Jenny Shadowin.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Jenny Shadowin. I am a second grade language arts teacher at Burns Elementary, that is in Davis County, which is near Owensboro or in Owensboro, Kentucky. This is my 23rd year of teaching, my 4th year of teaching second grade. Our focus on the plan this year was for phonics, word recognition, and comprehension strategies through small group instruction. And it was primarily designed for second grade. Back before the pandemic, our school had used the Jan Richardson's guided reading model and her RISE model with a small targeted group of students at the first grade level. We achieved some growth, but quickly realized that we needed a school-wide resource that we could pull resources from to assist a lot of struggling readers. So we purchased the Pioneer Valley Literacy Footprints program in 2021. We also had the digital version to help us when we were on that online with the pandemic and everything. So for the 21-2022 school year, we implemented the program in one reading class in 1st through 3rd grades to assist students who were below grade level or struggling, had some major difficulties with reading. So our priorities, kind of like what we do as teachers, we do that song and dance, anything to get them to improve. So we had to get those gaps closed. And so we focused on reading, writing, and we realized that we had some behavior and relationships that we had to build after that pandemic and being out for so long. So our school thought it was important to close the gaps in second grade students before they entered that 3rd grade year. So for 45 minutes a day, we set aside on Monday through Thursday for the most struggling students in reading. And in my classroom with those really struggling readers, we incorporated 4 adults, a classroom teacher, a reading recovery teacher, an MTSS behavior interventionist, and a Title I assistant. So we knew that programs help teachers, but we knew that teachers needed to help these students. We saw some major gaps. And so in second grade, we set aside 45 minutes, 4 days a week to facilitate this program. And so our 4 adults had anywhere from 4 to 6 students with them in that group. So our program kind of looked like this. On Monday was day 1 with lesson and some reading homework. Tuesday was day 2 with our lesson and reading homework. On Wednesday, we started a new book on day 1 with reading homework. And then on Thursday, we would do day 2 with the reading and writing homework. And then on Friday, we incorporated our assessments, our conferences with students, even had some celebrations on Fridays as well. And the students love to have those fun Fridays. So our day 1 lesson card kind of looked like this, and it really helped having this lesson card, because if you had to include an adult that wasn't familiar with the program or wasn't familiar with reading steps, it took us through all 4 steps, sight word review, introducing the new book. It even had, tells you what to say exactly word for word. Step 3, how to read and discuss the book and teach a skill for the day. And then step 4, helping with word studying, being able to make words and build new vocabulary. On day 2, it also had all those steps, reviewing those sight words, discussing the book that you talked about, our word study, mix and fix. But on the second day, day 2, it incorporated writing. And then it also gave you some tips and next steps that you could do if your students were struggling or if they didn't know a skill. And we found to be halfway through that the writing was a major focus that we needed to focus on, because having been online and not as much writing in kindergarten, we knew that they needed that extra writing portion. And so we made sure to send home parents this reading log that told them the words that they were learning to spell, the words that they could read for sight words, The books that we were focusing on for the week, one was a fiction book on Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday and Thursday, we focused on nonfiction. And we left a section open for students and parents to give comments about the book or what they were struggling with for that week. In the beginning, some students were just ordering words, learning how to put words in sentences and things like that. And then we found students were progressing and learning to write those sentences on day 2, still with some struggles. You have in mind, this is second grade and they're still struggling with their writing and reading. So we were trying to close those gaps. We did see growth, and we did see some sentences that were starting to look, a lot more like second grade sentences. We developed those plans for each and every group. We would write our notes, what focus groups we're working on, and things like that. We found that a lot of the students struggled with behavior when they started struggling with reading and writing. And so we started to kind of build those relationships. And that's when we saw those growth, that students are tested in the beginning on spelling and fluency and comprehension. And then those students are placed in those groups and they begin to progress at their own pace. Some moved within the classroom within different groups. And some even got to move on to our second grade level reading classroom. And so they progressed greatly throughout the year. And so my results and reflections are, all data has still not been collected yet. We are still testing students and we will continue to test on into the next 2 weeks. However, all students have shown at least a year's growth in reading, spelling, and in writing. Those that did not, we have a couple of that did not, have gone on into tier 2 interventions and testing for those purposes. Students truly enjoyed the small group instruction. They became more responsible with their ownership of their learning, having that one-on-one relationship with the teacher who was with them in that group. This is a letter from one of my students that started out on a kindergarten level. As teachers, we celebrate these moments because she couldn't hardly write a sentence at the beginning of the year. And I received this note from her last week. It says, "I wish you were my teacher forever because you're the best teacher ever. Even though you do a lot of writing in your class, I hope you stay with me a long, long time." Even use those commas in there. "I hope you live for a long time, and I hope you have a fun life. I love you so, so much. Thank you for helping me, and thank you for being nice." And as you can tell, she's improved in her writing. She's improved in her conversation and reading. And that's our ultimate goal, is that they do make these types of improvement. Some resources that we use for our small group instruction are the literacy footprints, of course, the Jan Richardson's Next Step lesson format, and her word study in phonics. But we found that the relationship that we built with each of our groups really helped to foster that growth in each and every student. All right, I think I'm finished.
Okay, I will share my screen. If I can get it. Okay, hi, my name is Leanne Wood. I teach first grade at Caverna Elementary, and I'm going to be talking about the Heggerty program. And you all might be familiar with that already, but if you're not, it's a phonemic awareness curriculum, and it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to do this every day. And just to give you an idea of my history with Heggerty, I have been in the classroom this is my 6th year, and I've always used Heggerty, but it's always been just a here and there, like a hit or miss thing. It was, if we had a few extra minutes to spare in the day, we would go through it. If we were waiting in line in the hallway, I would do it, but it wasn't intentional. But this year, I worked closely with our RTA interventionist teacher, and this was a program that she was driving for our whole school to push. And so I embraced that and I started using it very intentionally in my classroom all year. It was a daily thing. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. That was one of the first things we did. They knew to they had deer time before Heggerty, so they knew as soon as it was 8 o'clock, they were ready, and they would start saying, okay, it's time for Heggerty, it's time for Heggerty. So they enjoyed doing it. And so I will go through where we were when we started. At the beginning of the year, we take 3 assessments for literacy. We take the MAP test, and as you can see, I only had 33% scoring at or above where they should be. We did the Heggerty pre-assessments, and I had 82% that had an area of weakness and phonemic awareness. That's huge. And then our benchmark assessment, 88% scored below level. So you can see we had a huge, those huge gaps to overcome with literacy. And a lot of those we could see were based on a lack of phonemic awareness skills. So I talked with our RTA teacher, and we discussed some of the things that could have happened. One of the biggest factors, I think, is the lack of resources that our families have. And I've heard a lot of teachers talk about their families are not wanting to be involved, and that's not the case for my classroom this year. All of my families are very involved, and they want to support their students, but they just don't have a lot of resources to do it, or they don't have the time to do it. A lot of them are working 2 jobs, and they don't have the time to do it. And so that was a huge part of these skills that were missing. And also, of course, everybody knows, the virtual learning was a huge factor in those skills that are missing. It's just not the same teaching over the internet as it is being in school and having that small group instruction that you get there at school. So my research that this was based on, I used the books that we talked about in our summer training, A Game Changer, the Mega Book of Fluency, and Teaching Writing in Small Groups, and I incorporated those in my teaching. As we all know, phonemic awareness promotes fluency, and they said in the books that phonemic awareness problems that are not addressed early, they will show up in later grades and later test scores, and I mean, we all know that. But it's just a huge factor in how they're able to read. And then also when you put them in small groups and we can scaffold them, that builds their confidence, which helps with those skills. And also Heggerty is a daily practice of the Kentucky Academic Standard RF 1.2, which that states, I wanted to read that to you. It states that students should be able to demonstrate understanding of spoken words, syllables, and sounds, distinguish long from short vowel sounds in spoken syllable words, orally produce single syllable words by blending sounds, including consonant blends, construct and deconstruct spoken syllable words into initial, medial, vowel, and final sounds. And that Heggerty practices that every single day. So you're covering that every day. So I used 3 strategies to do this intentionally every day. And that was the first one, whole group. So we did this, like I said, at 8 o'clock every day. And so that was daily practice. And then it was also a formative assessment for me to see every day where all my students were. So I could see which skills they were struggling with, which students were struggling with which skill. So I could daily check in on that. And you can see the scores. We took the MAP test and Heggerty and benchmark in the fall, and then also in the winter. And the growth for some of these don't look as good as I would like, but I don't feel like this is an accurate reflection of where they are now. At this point, we have not taken our spring assessments yet, and I know that they have grown so much since the winter. But still, even in that amount of time, you can still see growth, especially in the phonemic awareness, because on the Heggerty assessment, which assesses every skill in phonemic awareness, they went from 18% having a proficiency in that to 75% having proficiencies by the winter test. So they have grown a lot. The second thing I did was the small group instruction. This was weekly, so I would do it every week with each small group, but we experienced Heggerty burnout. I actually got tired of doing it, and I could tell they did because we were doing it whole group, we were doing a small group, and my next strategy was doing like RTI with it, and they were done with it. And so about the middle of the year, I stopped doing the small group with Heggerty, and instead we did other phonemic programs, but I still made those connections between Heggerty and their writing, especially. And this is a picture of student work this is my student that struggles the most. And in the first picture, he has the words, most of them spelled correctly, and the letters are formed right, but they're sloppy and big. And we had our a volunteer assistant in there with him at this point, and she was modeling and dictating every single letter for him, and it was a struggle. But then on his spelling test, which he's still struggling with spelling, and so he's still on a lower list with only a few words. But this is huge. This was his first 100 on a spelling test for the year, and you can tell a difference in his handwriting. He is neater, it's more deliberate, and to hear him take his spelling test, he would chop it just like we do in Heggerty, at, and he would know which letter went with which sound. And I believe that was a lot based on that daily practice of Heggerty that we do. And then the last one that I did was the specific Tier 3 intervention. And our district actually hired an interventionist specifically for Heggerty. So we targeted our kids that struggled the most with phonemic awareness, and she pulled them out daily and worked with them on these skills. And a lot of those students graduated, and then we would put other students in, and those that she pulled are now some of my strongest readers, and they are able to decode multi-syllable words, and they've grown so much with their reading and their writing. So I wanted to put a sample video, and this is just a video of my kids doing Heggerty, and I have some kids that can't be on camera, so it's just a black screen, but you can hear their voices. And as I was watching this, I realized that I did one of the words, I messed up on one of the sounds, so just please overlook that. But this is just a sample, and I won't play it all because it's over 5 minutes, and I won't play that long, but it'll just give you an idea of what we do every day. Okay, we're gonna do Heggerty, so give me your full attention. Close your Chromebooks. Make sure you're in your seat. Okay, I'm gonna say a word, and I just want you to say any word you think of that rhymes with it. Book. Cool. Wood. Oh, remember with rhyming, it has to end the same way. So tell me another one. Wood. Could. I heard could. Would. Could. Okay, that's better. Boom. Okay, I'm going to say a word. You tell me the first sound. Raccoon. Poodle. Cartoon. Rooster. Cooker. Booster. Fish hook. Igloo. Good. I'm going to chop it. You tell me the word. Zoo. Broom. Rooster. Stool. Ood. Foot. Broof. Moon. Good. I'm going to say a word. I want you to tell me the middle sound you hear, that vowel sound, the middle sound. Book. Good, Julianne. Not the first sound, the middle. Tool. Good. Wood. Boot. Soon. Foot. Booth. Okay, so I'll stop it there. But it takes every aspect of phonemic awareness, and it's just a few words to practice that every day, and it mixes it up. And they seem to enjoy it, and we've seen some growth from that. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for me or Ms. Shadowin?
I think that you both did a great job. I do the Haggerty also in my classroom in kindergarten. And one thing that I've kind of started doing, we also do the recipe for reading with Gordon Gillingham.
Yes.
And I started one day doing the chopping with that as well, because that's what we do every day, Haggerty. And they were able to carry that on over there, and that was a good bridge, and it worked out very well for my students. And it's just, I think sometimes we do this motion for this, and then we have this motion for this, and it's just overwhelming at some points.
We also do the recipe for reading. I really like that too.
But Haggerty, it covers everything, and if you've got 5 extra minutes, you can do Haggerty. That's what I like about that. And going back with the literacy footprints, I thought it was interesting that I think you got more out of that than what you had intended to, because you got relationships with your students, and you found that if they weren't reading, like the rest of the students, then you started with the behavior. So you were able to kind of fix that behavior and fix the relationship. So you fixed a lot in the classroom just by working on reading. And those are some of the things that I just picked up on. So does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yes, one, I taught one person.
But the Jan plan, as I call it, it's phenomenal. I mean, all of these programs are great. And I mean, you don't have to, your school wants you to implement the whole thing. That's one thing, but I mean, they're just great. They're great to use.
That's why I need 3.
Okay, so if that's it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop recording. And you can get ready to figure out your next sessions. Okay? Great job, girls.